Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by survivingbreastcancer.org. I'm Laura Carfang, breast cancer survivor and founder of survivingbreastcancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Hey everyone, this is Laura from survivingbreastcancer.org. Thank you for coming to another episode of Breast Cancer Conversations. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. I think it's going to be such a fun conversation because I am talking with an old dear friend, Miranda, who I have known, I want to say from the inception of survivingbreastcancer.org when we were first getting off the ground. And I've heard such tremendous, amazing information and resources coming from Recovery on Water. So we are pleased to be joined by the Executive Director, Tara Hoffmann, who is on the call today. We're going to dive into topics such as survivorship, the side effects of tamoxifen and aromatase inhibitors, as well as some amazing, exciting plans we have coming up. Welcome to the conversation.
So I'm joining you today from Chicago, Illinois. That's the headquarters of Recovery on Water. We are a rowing team for breast cancer patients, survivors, and previvors. And row is in its 18th season. It's hard to believe. So we've been around since 2008 was our first practice.
Oh my gosh.
I joined the organization in 2016 after my own breast cancer diagnosis. And it's exactly what I was looking for at the time. I was feeling very passive as a patient in the middle of my treatment. And it was good treatment. You know, I was well cared for by my medical team, really, really grateful to them. But I just felt like I was getting shuttled around. There was not a lot that I could do proactively to just promote the best outcomes through treatment and beyond. So I was introduced by one of my doctors to this rowing team. He said I wasn't cleared to pick up an oar and exercise yet. I was still healing from surgeries. But I went on the Chicago River and I saw these women rowing and it was just amazing. I had no idea that anything like this existed. So I got in a boat as quickly as I could. I was an athlete on the team for 5 years and then I got my certifications to begin coaching.
Oh, wow.
So I volunteered as a coach. I eventually joined the staff and now I lead the organization as its executive director.
Amazing story. And you know, for those who don't know, I grew up in Evanston, just north of Chicago. So my heart is always in Chicago. I love Chicago. Now I'm in Boston, which is like a small compared to Chicago. Now I go back home and I'm like, oh my God, this place is so big. It's a big city. I'm like overwhelmed. It's totally funny. But I love all things Chicago, the Chicago River, the amazing architecture. And there was also the food. Oh my gosh, exactly. And I was also diagnosed at the end of 2016. My treatment year was in 2017. So you and I are also like approaching kind of like this survivorship phase of, you know, we passed the 5-year mark, but also like now what? And it still kind of lingers. And, you know, we're giving back, we're working in our organizations, but, you know, there's I think lingering side effects too that a lot of people still don't talk about. So I'm excited to dive into that. Miranda, another Chicagoan, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah.
Excellent. Would you like to give yourself an introduction? Is Chicagoan even a thing? Did I just make that up? Chicagoan?
No, I think that's a thing. It's cold here today, so I'm not quite excited about that. And literally like 5 days ago, it was 90 degrees, you know, typical Chicago. But yeah, I'm Miranda. Met Laura through another mutual friend, non-cancer friend, when I was diagnosed early in 2018. And she was like, oh, let me put you in touch with my friend Laura. You know, she also had breast cancer and she's young. And I was like, all right, sure. And then, yeah, we got connected and you actually called me the night before my first chemo and gave me lots of great tips and just a lot of, you know, positive encouragement. And like that really helped me. And yeah, I think you were just starting survivingbreastcancer.org. And yeah, we've kind of known each other ever since.
Oh, amazing. And how are you doing now? Like post-treatment, like what type of treatments did you go through? Was it chemotherapy, surgery? Did you also have radiation?
All the things. Yeah. I went through chemo for about 5 months, which was like a combination of Taxotere, carboplatin. I can't believe I still remember all of these. Herceptin, Perjeta, because I'm HER2 positive, and ER positive. And then I did the whole year on Herceptin. So 12 months of that, then surgery, then radiation. I did choose to have radiation on my breast and lymph nodes because I had lymph node involvement. So just all the things.
Yeah.
I was on Tamoxifen, I think I lasted about 9 months before I had really bad side effects and decided with my doctor, like, it's not worth it for me to stay on this. So I did stop that.
Okay. Excellent. So that was like a mutual conversation to have, like weighing quality of life and talking to your doctor about like the options.
Yeah. And I was, hormone positive, but it was a small percentage. So that's why we decided it was probably fine for me to go off. I mean, it was still a scary decision, but I
Yeah.
now can sleep at night and I'm not in pain all the time. So I think
That's a
that was
win. That's a win.
it did end up though having some unforeseen consequences, and I ended up having another surgery a few years later for stage 4 endometriosis. So that was kind
Ooh.
of one of the unforeseen side effects of the cancer treatment, because prior I had been, on a hormonal birth control since I was about 15 because of painful cramps. And when I ended up being hormone positive, they were like, you got to stop, taking that. Okay, great. Then once I stopped the tamoxifen, the endometriosis that I'd probably had for 20 years, like exploded in my body. And I ended up having a very large blood cyst. And that was causing a lot of pain. We figured it out. I'm super grateful my doctors took it really seriously. And then I underwent a 4-hour pelvic surgery
Wow.
to clear out a bunch of scar tissue and the cyst and several of my organs, including my appendix.
Oh my goodness.
So that was like a wild ride that I went on, thinking like, all right, I'm done with cancer treatment. This is great. Now I just need to start healing and feeling better. And then that happened. So
Wow.
that was exciting.
And I do not know much about stage 4 endometriosis cancer, but is that also terminal in the sense that like you're going to be on treatment for the rest of your life, or there's always going to be maintenance? I equate it to what I know around metastatic breast cancer, so I'm not really sure.
It's actually not a cancer. So
Oh, okay.
endometriosis, yeah, thank God, right? It can, I think, increase some risks to like ovarian cancer, but it is a condition where your uterine lining breaks off and starts growing in other places. And so it basically bleeds just like a uterus would during a normal menstruation, but like in your body, places that shouldn't be. And they have found endometrial cells everywhere. So some people, they'll find them in their shoulder, like places you would never think. Mine, at least, was contained to my pelvis area, but it was on my diaphragm. They've removed scar tissue from just like everywhere. Had to lose one of my ovaries. They had to remove my appendix just because it was so covered in scar tissue. It was easier just to take the whole organ out rather than try to remove the individual spots. It's one of these conditions, probably because it's a thing that women and, people assigned female at birth have and not men. So it's not studied very well. It is now more than it has been in the past. But so there's no cure. There's really no treatment. I mean, there's things you can do like being on hormonal birth control that kind of keeps it in check. The nuclear option is having a hysterectomy, which
I see.
at the time, I think I was still 38, so my doctor did not want to do that.
Yeah.
I didn't either. So yeah, it's just one of those things where there's no real treatment. There's no cure. I still have it. I still am in pain, and I'll either choose to go nuclear or I will maybe have to have more surgeries to clean out more scar tissue and lesions. So
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's amazing what breast cancer can lead to. We were talking a second ago about like other lingering side effects or what it exposes us to if you are hormonal positive, and then just kind of like the reactions of some of the drugs that we're on, or when we stop taking drugs, other things show up. So I'm really glad to hear that your doctors took you so seriously, because I also hear the other side of the story where we're being dismissed, or, is it pain? Is it tolerable? How are you feeling? And just suck it up sometimes, right? Like, is this actually real? And to become so painstakingly, like, checking yourself into emergency rooms and really just trying to go through all of this to get the attention. So I'm glad you got that type of support from your doctor.
Yeah, I was super so relieved when I had an MRI and they're like, oh yeah, you have this huge mass that was like the size of a grapefruit. And I was like, I mean, that sucks. But also I was like, thank God I'm not crazy.
Right.
There is literally something that's causing this pain and it's not just me. So
It can be very vindicating.
yeah.
It's satisfying in a way, like, it's huge.
Yeah.
It feels kind of good. Like, yeah, I know.
I've been telling you, right? Yes. And so, Tara, I didn't ask you earlier, like, was your breast cancer also hormonal driven?
Yeah, it sounds like we had the exact same chemotherapy regimen, Miranda. And I also had the radiation and hormonal treatment. So I called it the full boat: surgery, chemo,
Yes.
radiation, and then the endocrine treatment.
And did you stay on the endocrine treatment?
Yes. In fact, I have another year. I was on tamoxifen, which I tolerated fairly well. Definitely side effects, but I kind of learned to absorb them. When I entered menopause and needed to switch to, it was initially anastrozole. Oh boy, that was a spectrum of stuff that I was experiencing. And it took a while to stitch it back and link it to the anastrozole, to the drug change. But once I did, I was able to shift to another drug in the same class. Still side effects, right? None of them are free. None of them are easy, but better and more tolerable. So I'm just like toughing out that last mile.
Oh, it's so hard. And so I would love to like linger on this topic for just a little bit because we get questions all the time of, is hormonal therapy necessary? Everyone hears about the side effects. We're talking about them right now. They're real. And so people are like, do I have to do this? Right? A lot of times, especially for early stage breast cancer, we're thinking, okay, I can get through the treatment. I can get through, 30 rounds of radiation, X, Y, and Z. Is this going to be done? But when your doctor starts then talking to you about hormonal therapies for 5 years, upwards of 10 years, depending on, the age at which you're diagnosed and everything, that's a whole other game changer right there. And so it sounds like we have actually very great examples here of like Miranda deciding that this wasn't a good quality of life for you and you made a really great decision with your doctor to get off the treatment. I started off on the aromatase inhibitors with a Lupron shot. So I was actually premenopausal, but they decided to start me off with the aromatase inhibitors. And then I used a shot to suppress my ovaries, so forcing me into menopause basically, which is another fun topic. And then I ended up switching onto tamoxifen in the last couple of years because the AIs obviously have side effects of causing osteoporosis. And so, after being on this for so long, I was becoming osteopenic. And so they were like, let's make some changes. And so it sounds also similar, Tara, where you're going and starting off on tamoxifen and then switching to an AI. And so can we just talk a little bit about the side effects? Like, what were you experiencing?
Well, with the tamoxifen, it was hot flashes and impacted my sleep, but I just it got tolerable over time. As I got used to it, I was able to make other changes where it wasn't fun, but it was okay. With the aromatase inhibitor, I developed a frozen shoulder pretty quickly, and that changed everything in what had been a very athletic and active lifestyle. And it took months for me of PT and small improvements and then backsliding and crying in my PT's office because I was so frustrated with this, that he said, let's talk to your oncologist about your meds. And when I made a switch, within 10 days, the frozen shoulder started to resolve.
Wow.
And so that was a win. That was a big win. My physical therapist was delighted and said, can I write a paper about you? And everybody worked together, right? Like, I don't blame anybody for making the medication switch. It was the protocol. But I'm glad that everybody listened to one another and that we kind of solved the mystery. I wish it had taken less than 7 months, but we worked it out and there was a resolution.
That's great. It totally still surprises me in this day and age that the medicine still is not a perfect science. There's a lot of trial and error, a lot of trying to rule out what it's not in order to find out what it is. And I think you bring up a really great point for our listeners who don't know that there's this class of aromatase inhibitors. And so if one of them is not working for you, talk to your doctor and advocate to see maybe switching to a second or a third one will, I would say, be the least of all the evils. Are there side effects that can be tolerable or managed, to preserve that quality of life? And so, Miranda, it sounds like you had a different experience in terms of nope, time out, I'm done.
Yeah. I started on tamoxifen during radiation. So kind of like once I had recovered from surgery and just as I was starting radiation, but still on Herceptin, I started tamoxifen. And, obviously the radiation had tough side effects. Herceptin, even though it's not as bad as chemo, it does still affect me. I had side effects from that. So at that point, it was kind of like, well, which one is it? I was still just recovering from chemo. Everything happens so one after the other. But once I, finally finished Herceptin and, kind of moved on, that I was just on the tamoxifen. And, things weren't necessarily getting better physically, like how I felt. So about the only side effect I didn't have from tamoxifen was hot flashes. I know that's the most common, and I did not have them. I almost wish that I had, because what I did end up with was terrible insomnia. But then on the flip side of that, really easy fatigue, like throughout the day. And bone pain was kind of my second one. Just bone pain all the time. Not, I used to joke, like, it's not Neulasta level bone pain after I'd get my Neulasta shot after chemo, because that was like a level 10 pain. But I was like, it's a level 5 bone pain. Another friend who had gotten through treatment, she was like, the normal level of bone pain is 0. You should be experiencing 0 bone pain. I was like, oh, I guess you're right. But since I was so used to the bone pain from Neulasta being like excruciating, I just sort of wrote it off as like, well, this is my life now. But just none of it got better. It was the point where like I had to take Ambien just to be able to sleep. And that's not a good, long-term solution. You're not supposed to be on that for a long extended period of time. And, because I was diagnosed at 33, like they were going to have me be on this for the 10-year.
Yeah.
I think I made it like 9 months, and I finally just, had like a follow-up with my oncologist. And I was like, we either need to think about something else, or I was like, I cannot live like this for 10 years. Like, I'm not going to do it. So that's when we made the decision for me to stop. I was, again, ER positive. But it was a small percentage. I don't know the math and science behind it. So it was one of those things where it turned out like it's going to be a risk if you stop, but what's more important at this point. So I made a decision to go off, and then almost, I won't say immediately, but I was able to sleep. I didn't have to take sleeping pills. I wasn't experiencing like the same amount of bone pain. My energy levels, started to improve. I think ultimately it was the right decision. I mean, unfortunately, it did lead to the endometriosis then exploding, but it's kind of like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's like, so yeah.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a really great point too, of like recognizing the risk, having the honest conversation with your doctor, and then being able to live with that decision, right? So there's just like no regret. We're making these decisions that are best for us in the time with the information that we have. And so I'm happy that that worked out for you. So, despite the endometriosis, but like the fact that you got like your quality of life back. And then my story with this also has just been like trying to find. So I actually experienced all 3 of the aromatase inhibitors because I was having ridiculous hot flashes. And Tara, I don't know how it was for you, but like I would just like start sweating like profusely. And like not just like, oh, I'm turning flush or red or having a hot flash through like natural menopause. This was like, I would be like sitting there talking to a friend and just start like out of nowhere drenched. And then, are freezing because you just sweat, and then you're like hot again and then cold. And then it changed my like wardrobe. I had no idea what to wear to work anymore because I was totally just like sweaty all the time because I was forced into like medical menopause, what I'm calling it. I gained a ton of weight. So that was like not fun. So now as a breast cancer survivor and thriver, it was like body image issues, amputations to our like breast, female body parts, weight gain, joint pain was a big one for me. So like I didn't even want to work out. My doctors were like, you should work out more, lose weight. I'm like, make it sound easy, right? Like not so easy. So it was just like this whole thing for years. And to your point, it's like, okay, do we just like suck it up now? Is this how it's going to be? And I just I don't want to say I accepted it, but I was like, this is how it's going to be. And I don't know if it got better or I just tolerated it. Like I just accepted what the situation was. And so when my doctor told me that science has changed for my particular tumor size and type and all of these things, that I could actually get off the medicine at year 8, not 10, because studies were showing that there was not significant benefit in my case between years 8, 9, and 10. So like 8 years was considered, significant and good. And they gave me that option. And I was like, oh yes, sign me up. Like I remember the day, it was like, I think over the summer where I was like, this is my last pill. I like might have made like a TikTok about it. I was like really excited, like last one I'm taking. But then that anxiety of like, oh gosh, now I'm not taking anything. Like the side effects were terrible, but now I'm not taking anything. So what, now what? Like who's watching me? How do I make sure that the cancer's at bay? Do we just assume that we just did the best that we could do and we were aggressive when we could be aggressive? and now we just like wait and see. I don't know. It's kind of like this new era for me. But thanks for indulging me on this conversation, because we get a lot of questions in our support groups, in my inbox on social media of just like, oh gosh, tell me about the good, the bad, the ugly of what we need to know about the aromatase inhibitors and tamoxifen. So good deep dive there. I would love to switch gears a little bit and kind of ask, Miranda, was it you or Andrea? Sorry if I'm like mixing up the two here, but like, were you part of Recovery on Water, or was that Andrea?
It was me first, and
Okay.
then I told Andrea to get involved. So I joined Row in late 2018, like December 2018. I went to my first kind of meeting, practice, open house, I think it was.
And how did you find out about it? Was it through your doctor also, or how did you discover it?
I actually found out through another friend who didn't have cancer, but her sister was friends with the Row founder. And so she, like, they had gone to college together. And so she had messaged me, like, oh, like, I think she actually sent me a link for the Power 10 camp and was like, you should check this out. They like, this is for breast cancer patients and they row. And this was literally like towards the end of my chemo. So like at my sickest. And I'm sitting there going like, first of all, I'm not really an athlete or sports. Like I dance. So, I mean, I guess could consider myself athletic, but I've never played like sports growing up, seriously. So she's sending me this link and this info about this rowing team, which in my mind, I went to undergrad college in Boston. So to me, rowing teams were like Ivy Leaguers out on the Charles, not some little girl like me from the Midwest. So, I was kind of like, I'm so sick. I barely want to get off my couch. And like, you're sending me this thing about a competitive sport rowing team. I was like, no, that is not something I'm interested in. But as I finally moved out of chemo and, I went through radiation, I was feeling a little better. I was like, well, maybe I'll look into this Row, because I had gone to like a few other like support groups for, young breast cancer patients. And it just never really like clicked with me. And this is like no shade on those groups, but I felt, kind of judged by some of like the medical decisions I had made with my team. For example, like I just had a lumpectomy rather than a mastectomy based on conversations with my doctor and my surgeon. Even with lymph involvement, even my tumor was very large. I did chemo before my surgery and I had such a like huge response to it. It completely shrunk my tumor down to almost like nothing. And, my doctor was like, there is no medical evidence that would suggest if you had a mastectomy versus a lumpectomy that you'd have a better outcome. And I was like, great, that's what I want to hear, But when I kind of mentioned that in the support group, like everyone looked at me like I was insane. Like, why hadn't I chosen to just chop off both my breasts? And I was like, so I did not go back to that support group, but I still wanted to like find a group that I could be around people that like got it and hopefully didn't judge because I had made a different medical decision than they did. And that's what I found with Row really is, I went to my first meeting and everyone was great. And, it's like a non-support support group, because sometimes we would talk about cancer things and sometimes we wouldn't. It would just be about team building or exercise or commiserating over side effects. But I never felt judged or awkward for any choices I had made. And it was just such a positive space for me to be around people that got it. So yeah, I joined the team and then I told Andrea, who was like a few months behind me in treatment. And I was like, oh, well, when you're feeling better, you got to come check out Row. And then that's kind of how it started.
Amazing. And you're absolutely right. Like finding that support group or that camaraderie is really important. And it's about fit. There are so many great, amazing nonprofits doing outstanding work. So it's really trying to find, that culture and, that environment and vibe that you're looking for. Tara, is that similar? Because I know you're now leading the organization, dial back to 2016, 17, 18, like when you became involved.
My participant hat, as I like to say. Yeah, it was a little different. I heard about it when I first joined, I said, I'm coming for the exercise. That's why I'm here. I was so ready. I had been fit prior to cancer treatment. I had been a runner and in fact ran a half marathon right after my second chemo treatment. And I got through it. I called it chemo PR. It was, after that, I was down a little bit. It was kind of the last day I had that energy.
Did they give you a lot of steroids before chemo? Because I remember I was always very hyper the day after.
Yeah. The day of treatment and the day after weren't too bad. It was the second day.
Mm-hmm.
And once I learned that, I just managed my life. That's the day I took off of work.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was looking for something to do to make me feel powerful again. I just felt very weak. It took me a while to recover from 2 surgeries.
Mm.
And I was sort of hunched over. I remember walking into my doctor's office with the drain still attached. And I'd just been carrying myself like Quasimodo for 6 weeks. And my body felt terrible. And so when that finally came out and I was able to get a little bit more active, that's what I was hungry for, was the exercise. And I didn't think I needed a support group. And I very quickly realized how much the friendship and the emotional support was helping me and the understanding of what I was going through. I met people on the first day. They asked me questions about my treatment. Then they remembered and they followed up at the second practice. Hey, how was your treatment? I know that you had it on Tuesday. And I was blown away that people remembered that. I really received a lot from that. And the friendship started to take front and center what I was getting from Roe. So I recognized.
Were you a rower
as a
beforehand?
I was, strangely.
Okay.
In college, I had rowed. It was a club sport, so it wasn't like I was not recruited to row. This was not a rowing scholarship. It was just me doing something that I thought was collegiate. But I loved it. I did it for 2 years. I never thought I would go back to the sport. It was just like a blink in my experience. And so when it was offered to me again, I said, heck yeah, rowing is cool. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Most athletes that come to row have not rowed before. And it's one of their big questions. Can I join? I don't have any rowing experience. Absolutely. 95% of our members have never held an oar before in their lives. So it's not required.
I was 95%.
Yeah. What transformation do you see, Tara, with these members now putting on your leadership hat, right? People that are coming, people are listening to this podcast, trying to get this message of the benefits of this community that is thriving. What have you seen that's been transformational?
Well, hearing you each talk about what it's like to be in your doctor's office, suffering and talking about side effects and symptoms and trying to resolve them and having exercise being one of the things that's offered, I think this is exactly how Roe got started. Our 2 founders, one was a rowing coach and one was a breast cancer survivor. And she had been told by her doctor, adding a little bit of exercise to your routine could improve a lot of things that you're experiencing and improve your outcomes after treatment is over. And she was like, oh my God, I hate exercise. I hate the gym. I hate it. And Roe was born out of this idea that there could be something that's more fun, more aspirational than just getting a gym membership and more supported, where when I show up, it's not just going to be me feeling like the one cancer survivor that doesn't really, that sets the elliptical machine to 1, because that's all I can do. I'm going to be in a space where people get me. I'm going to be supported. And then we're going to do something that's actually a real sport and kind of challenging. But I'm going to be taught how to do that and I'm going to be lifted up. And that's what Roe is. That's the transformation I see. It is definitely a brave choice to make. If you've never done the sport before, rowing is a hard sport. But we choose rowing because it's efficient, it's low impact and full body. So it's going to get the job done. It's going to get you a good workout, but it's also very scalable because it's a low impact sport and it's appropriate for a wide ranges of ages and body types and fitness levels. We can start you where you're at, but there's a lot of room to grow. It's a real sport and it can be very aspirational as you start to get better at it and you get this vision. And I would say that's the thing I see that's so exciting. It'll be that one practice. And you don't know if it's practice 1, it rarely is, but it might be practice 4 or it might be practice 40 when an athlete feels her oar go into the water and she feels the connection and she feels that, oh my God, that's my power. That's the boat's helping me, but I feel what I'm doing. And the spark goes off and they kind of get it.
Awesome.
And that's wonderful. Then they really want to come back. They feel excited about the power, the harmony.
Mm-hmm.
and the specialness. I like to say the sexiness
Yeah.
of rowing. It's not your average sport. Being outside, being on the water, that's a big draw. Now, we exercise all year round because in Chicago, we can only be on the water April through October. We have a long winter here and it's coming,
Yes.
but we keep fit, right? The organization doesn't shut its doors in November. So we do a lot of work on the rowing machine, a lot of flexibility, a lot of strength training, and the reward is the water. So it's why a lot of women come to row instead of joining the gym. And it's why a lot of people come back after their first water season because they want that again.
Amazing.
There's something pretty magical about being on the water and working with others and trying to find that synchronicity and that harmony where everybody's working together.
Beautiful. I love that. I'm excited. I want to try rowing. I've never done it in my life. I'm here in Boston. So
Well,
now I
come
feel
on
like
out.
there's
You're in a good place to do it. So.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
A lot of opportunities.
So I feel like we have a couple events that we want to like highlight and give shout outs to as well. So I should have looked this up even before pressing record, but like the Boston Regatta is like coming up. I know that's like a really big thing, or did that already happen?
Yeah, that's next weekend. Not this coming weekend, but next weekend.
Okay.
Head of the Charles Regatta on the Charles River in Boston. It is the premier regatta in the U.S., and we will be sending a boat. Recovery on Water is sending 8 athletes in a lineup representing row, and then we have a couple other athletes traveling there, and they're going to be competing in composite boats where they're one athlete within a boat of from other teams.
Oh, so like when you're saying like you're sending a team, like you're sending people from Chicago to come to Boston to do the Head of the Charles?
Yes. There's an event that is just cancer survivors. And it's on Saturday. It's Saturday the 17th? Now I got to check my own notes. Yep, Saturday the 18th, October 18th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time is the Survivor event. I believe there's 14 boats in that event.
Wow. Okay.
And one of them will be Recovery on Water. So keep your eyes peeled.
Amazing. That's awesome.
It's wonderful. Those athletes have been preparing all summer. They were selected in, I believe, May, and they've been training together, working really, really hard because it's a challenging race. It's almost 5,000 meters and it's a very twisty course, but they're ready. They are looking so good. They're just ready to fly down that course. I can't wait to watch them.
Oh, that's exciting. Awesome. And then that's also a very busy weekend. Is that also the Chicago Marathon weekend?
No, that's this weekend.
Oh, that's this weekend. Okay.
So
gosh, so much is happening in October. Okay. So this weekend.
Yep. The 12th, right? Sunday, October 12th is the Chicago Marathon. We actually have a fundraising team that runs the marathon and fundraises for Recovery on Water. So we're hyping up. We have a pasta dinner tomorrow, and then we're going to be on the course cheering them on Sunday.
I love that. Amazing. The Chicago Marathon was my first marathon that I ran after my after my diagnosis. So it was like one of those things where it's like, I was kind of like a runner. I was more of like the 5K runner. I was more of like a yogi person, like pre-cancer, but like post-cancer, I was like, all right, we like just beat cancer, so to speak, right? Like we went through all of this. Like I need to get my life back, my body back. Still didn't lose any weight training all those 26 miles. I blame it on all of the aromatase inhibitors and like all of this stuff. And we weren't breaking any records. But me and another breast cancer survivor friend who ended up becoming a triathlete and has competed in several Ironman triathlons post-cancer. So now I have this thing where like chemo made me do it. Like they make us do really crazy, wild things like these drugs, right? But the Chicago Marathon was my first marathon. So again, Chicago's been close to my heart. I'm really excited for you. That's going to be a great
Laura.
fundraiser.
It's a great one.
It is. The second one that I did. Thank you. Second one I did was with another breast cancer friend. It was called Grandma's Marathon. It's in Duluth, Minnesota. And it's like point to point. So like you take this train all the way up 26 miles north of wherever. But it's this beautiful run along Lake Michigan all the way down to like the town of Duluth. And it was so beautiful, except that because it's point to point, I was totally sunburned on the back because you're just running in one direction the whole time. But it was beautiful. And, just being along the water, as you were mentioning, has such magic and power. But then, okay, fast forward to like other events happening this month. And we have Breast and Show. So Miranda, tell me about the birth of this amazing event that you're doing. And Tara and I get to be there. Tara, are you going to be there in person? Do I get to meet you in person?
I got a VIP table right in the front.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, I love that. So I'll be there in person too. So I'm excited to see everybody. But Miranda, tell me about Breast and Show.
Yeah, so this is going to be our 7th year doing it. Andrea, who's the co-producer, co-host, and my cancer twin, as we call each other. So kind of our story is we did not know each other at all before being diagnosed with breast cancer, but like We have all the same mutual friends. We ran and performed in the same circles, but for some reason, we had never met each other. We had never performed together, which is very weird because we were both burlesque dancers. We were both tap dancers in Chicago. Like I said, same group of friends. I was diagnosed in January of 2018, and then she was literally diagnosed a month after me with the exact same kind of cancer, both HER2 positive, both ER positive. And so another mutual friend of both of us put us in touch. And at that point, I was at Northwestern, and I believe Andrea was, at a different hospital, but I was like, you gotta switch over to Northwestern. I was like, oh my gosh, like it's so great. I love my team. I love my surgeon. And she did. So we had the same surgeon. We had different oncologists, but exact same treatment plan. In fact, when I was at the end of radiation, she was just starting. And so we definitely were in the waiting room together for a few weeks there with our radiation. So yeah, we call each other cancer twins. Kind of in 2019, then as we were both kind of coming out of treatment finally, we were like, maybe we should do something. Like, we're both performers. We have all these friends that do burlesque and variety. Like, we could put on a show and raise some money. At that time, we both had been involved with Fro, and obviously knew you, Laura, and survivingbreastcancer.org. So we were like, all right, let's just do that, and we'll raise money, and we'll split the funds between the two groups. And we're like, we don't know how it's going to go, but yeah, it'll be fun. And so, yeah, now this is our 7th year doing it. We have sold out every single year. We do a raffle. We sell raffle tickets and do a raffle during intermission. That's always a big part of the funds that we raise. So it's just a really, really fun show. Everyone who performs is donating their time and their talents. And our volunteers that help run our box office and the raffle and stage manage, everyone volunteers their time, donates their act, which, that's a really big ask for performers. Some of these performers, this is their job. They're full-time performers, even if it's not their main source of income. Obviously, in every industry, there's always big conversations about what you should be paid, and the fact that they're willing to spend the time with all of the costumes and the makeup and getting there and performing for free is just really amazing. And every year we are just so blown away by the response that we get. This year, in fact, we had, I think, maybe the most people sign up to volunteer that we actually had to cut people, which was so hard for us because we're just so grateful. We want everybody, but then it would probably be a 4-hour show. So we did have to scale back the number of acts this year just a little bit. So we're not there.
It's a good problem to have, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. It's a fantastic problem to have. Even though we don't pay people, we always try to make it really great backstage, bring snacks and, give all the performers free raffle tickets so they can try to win something too. And, it's so nice because we see a lot of the same people wanting to come back and perform for us every year, as well as new people too each year. So, one of my friends, she's been in every single Bruston show now to date. And she's always like, oh yeah, no question. Of course I want to do it. So yeah, we're really excited. So this year's show is going to be on Monday, October 20th at 7 p.m. Love a good early show. I like to be home in bed by 10. So it's going to be at the Newport Theater in Chicago, which is pretty close to Wrigley Field and that area. And yeah, we have, I believe, 12 acts this year. The raffle, the theater, has a bar in there, so you can drink, you can have fun. Yeah, and I want to say every year we raise, over $2,000 typically every year to be able to give to both organizations. So I'd say probably over the course of all the shows we've done, we've certainly raised more than there's $15,000 total just over the course of Reston show. And when you think about those numbers, that's really big for just two girls that are like, oh, let's just get some friends together and,
let's put on a
do a burlesque show.
Yeah. Well, I think it speaks to one of the themes that I'm hearing from both of you and that we really value at survivingbreastcancer.org as well, is this idea of community, right? Like community in the boat, community on the water, community as performers and burlesque dancers, and the support that people are coming out and pouring out through volunteerism to say, we support the cancer community, we support our friends, we're supporting people we haven't met yet because we're raising funds for a community that we know is really important. And so, I am so grateful for the work that you guys are doing, and knowing that, for me, I see this, especially in October, when people I haven't even met yet are like, oh, I'm getting my church group together and we're going to do a walk and we're going to donate funds to survivingbreastcancer.org. Or my daughter's a Girl Scout and she's doing this, breakfast, and we're going to be donating to your organization. And it really just reminds me that, and I think all three of us like on this call today can say, like, sometimes we're like in the trenches and we don't realize the impact that we're having. But then to realize and come above and be like, wow, the work that we're doing is really touching people's lives, making a difference and having a lasting impact. And we're here today to talk about it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the decisions that come with a breast cancer diagnosis. And so I'm just really glad to have the two of you on today's call to share our new community, our new friendship, and continuing friendships that we all get to meet in person. And I can't thank you guys enough.
If you're interested in learning more, visit our website, recoveryonwater.org. You can also follow our social media at Recovery on Water on Instagram and Facebook, and Recovery on Water _row on LinkedIn.
Excellent.
Check us out on Instagram. It's a lot of fun. We share a lot about what's happening at practices and social events. And I guess that would be the one thing I would share as a closer is we are so grateful to be a beneficiary of Breast in Show, amazed that this is its 7th year. And in addition to being a fundraiser that supports us, we have such a fun time there because our team members love a focused workout, but they love a good social event as well. And it's a good show. It's always a lot of fun.
So,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. If people in the Chicago area are interested in tickets, I can get you the Eventbrite link. I will say that our VIP tickets are completely sold out. Those sold out really fast and first. My mom being some of the purchasers, so very excited about that. And I think as of right now, we are more than 50% sold. It is a show that typically does sell out. So if anyone's thinking about going, get your tickets sooner than later. And yeah, we're just really excited. The acts, I think, are really great this year. They're great every year, but always excited. Yeah, it's just been really fun to do. This year's show, we also not so secretly love Halloween, both Andrea and I. So for the last few years, we've come up with weird horror movie adjacent names. So this year it's Breast in Show 7, Killer Breasts from Outer Space is the theme. So very excited about that. And yeah, can't wait to see everybody there. I think Andrea and I both especially enjoy doing this because, everybody, in the community is pretty familiar with pink washing. And it's like you go to the grocery store and it's, buy this box of cereal with a pink ribbon on it and proceeds go to, who knows where. So our big thing is we just wanted to do a fundraiser event where people can feel good that the money they're donating goes to a very specific spot for 2 places that, 100% it benefits actual patients and survivors, not just vague promises of, a cure. That's great and all, but, people need that support in that community immediately, not vaguely down the road. And we feel good about being able to help raise money for that.
We're so grateful for that. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time today, for sharing your stories, and for the amazing work that we're doing. And we're going to hang out next week. So I'm super excited.
I'm excited.
All right.
I'll see you very soon, both of you.
Yes. And thank you, everyone, for listening to our show. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast is from personal experiences and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. If you are looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please feel free to reach out. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. Our show is made possible by our nonprofit, survivingbreastcancer.org, and by our incredible donors like yourself. You can hop on over to survivingbreastcancer.org to sign up for our mailing list, make a donation, and explore the 400+ programs we offer each year at survivingbreastcancer.org /events. Until next time, keep on thriving.